never thought that at 63 years old, I would once again feel the kind of terror I knew as a child when I used to wake up screaming from nightmares. But here I am, writing this with trembling hands. After 3 weeks without being able to sleep more than 2 hours at a time. My name is Esperanza Morales, and for 30 years I worked as a librarian at the National University of Cordoba. I thought I had seen all kinds of strange materials. From medieval manuscripts to archival photographs no one ever claimed. But nothing prepared me for what I found in the library basement last March 15 th. It was a rainy Friday, the kind that soaks you to the bone in Cordoba. I had finished my shift late because I was cataloging a donation of digital files that had arrived the week before materials from an anthropology professor who had died without family. And the university had inherited his entire collection. Hard drives, CDs, even some old floppy disks that made me feel nostalgic for the 90s. The elevator was broken again. So I had to take the stairs down to the basement, where we kept the oldest computers, the only ones. Still able to read those obsolete formats. The fluorescent light flickered as always, making that annoying buzzing sound that got on my nerves. But I was used to it. 30 years in that library teaches you to get used to a lot of things. I inserted the first floppy disk and started reviewing the files. Research documents, excavation photographs, academic correspondence. Everything was quite normal until I found a folder simply labeled SM92. Inside, there was only one file, an image called smile.jpg. I should have been more careful. I should have followed protocol and checked with the IT department before opening unknown files. But curiosity got the better of me. I double-clicked. The image took a few seconds to load, pixel by pixel, as photos often did on those old machines. At first, I thought it was a tasteless joke. It was a photo of an animal. It looked like a dog taken with flash in what appeared to be a basement or a very dark room. The animal was sitting, staring directly at the camera. But there was something deeply disturbing about the image. The animal's mouth was open in what appeared to be a smile. But it wasn't a normal smile. It wasn't the expression dogs make when they pant. It was a smile far too wide, far too human. And the teeth were perfectly white, perfectly straight, perfectly human. In the background, barely visible in the darkness, was a human hand extended, as if gesturing someone to come closer. I closed the image immediately. Something twisted in my stomach, a wave of nausea I couldn't explain. But what disturbed me the most was that, for a moment, it felt like that thing was staring directly into my eyes, as if it knew I was there. I finished my work quickly and went up to the main floor. The security guard, Don Carlos, greeted me as usual. Everything all right. Do Esperanza, you look a bit pale. Yes, just tired. These old files give me a headache. I lied. It wasn't a headache. It was a strange sensation, like something crawling along the back of my neck. On the bus ride home, I couldn't stop thinking about that image. I tried to convince myself it was just a manipulated photo, a student prank from the 90s. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. I arrived at my apartment in the San Martin neighborhood around 9 at night. I've lived alone since my husband passed away 5 years ago, and normally I enjoy the silence. But that night, the quiet felt oppressive. I reheated some leftover Milanesa for dinner and watched the news, trying to distract myself. But the image lingered in my mind. As if burned into my retinas, I went to bed early, hoping sleep would help me forget. But when I closed my eyes, there it was again, not as a memory, but as if I were seeing the image once more. Every detail perfectly sharp, the smile to wide, the teeth to human, the hand reaching out from the dark dot, and then, in my dream, the thing began to speak. Esperanza, it said. with a voice that was neither animal nor human, something in between. At last someone sees me. At last someone finds me. I wanted to wake up, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed, forced to keep staring at that horrible smile. I've waited so long. The voice continued. I need you to do something for me. I need you to share my image. I need you to spread the word. What word? I asked in my dream, even though I didn't want to talk to that thing. The word of my existence. Show others what you've seen. Share my smile. That's all I ask. No, I replied, and the thing seemed surprised. No, Esperanza, I don't think you understand. This isn't a request. It's a necessity. If you don't, I will visit you every night, every time you close your eyes. I'll be here, waiting for you. The smile widened, and I could see that behind those human teeth, there was something else, something I didn't want to see. I woke up screaming at 3 a.m. My nightgown was soaked with sweat, and my heart was pounding so hard I thought I might have a heart attack. But the worst part was the feeling that something was in the room, a presence, as if that thing had followed me from the dream. I got up and turned on every light in the apartment. I checked every corner, every closet, under the bed. Nothing, but the feeling lingered. That smile was still there, somewhere in my mind, waiting for me to close my eyes again. I spent the rest of the night sitting in the living room, all the lights on, drinking tea and trying to convince myself it was all just a nightmare. But when dawn came and I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, I knew something had changed. My eyes held an expression I didn't recognize, an expression of terror that had survived the dream. That Saturday, I tried to live normally. I went to the market for vegetables, cleaned the apartment, called my sister in Buenos Aires. But everything felt unreal, like I was performing in a play. The image was still there, in the back of my mind, waiting, and I knew that when night came, when I closed my eyes, that thing would speak to me again. And I was right. That night, the nightmare was worse. The smile was bigger, clearer, and the voice was more insistent. Esperanza, don't be stubborn. You know what you must do. Share my image. Share my existence. It's so simple. All you have to do is show someone else what you saw. And I'll leave you alone. And what will happen to that person? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The thing laughed, and it was the most horrible sound I'd ever heard. The same thing that's happening to you. But that's not your problem, right? You just want to sleep. You just want me gone. I'm not going to do it, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Then I'll see you tomorrow night. And the night after, and every night after that. Forever, Esperanza. Forever. I woke up screaming again. And this time, when I turned on the lights, I noticed something that froze my blood. In the mirror in my bedroom, for just a second, I saw something besides my own reflection. I saw a smile that wasn't mine. On Sunday, I decided I couldn't go on like this. I had slept less than 5 hours into days, and I was starting to see things that shouldn't be there, shadows moving in corners, reflections that didn't match my image. I called my doctor, Dr. Herrera, who had known me for years. Esperanza, you sound very distressed. Have you been sleeping well? No, doctor. I've been having terrible nightmares. And I see things that I don't think are really there. What kind of things? I couldn't tell him the truth. I couldn't explain that I had seen a cursed image on a floppy disk in the library. It sounded too ridiculous, too absurd. So I made up a story about work-related stress and the upcoming retirement. Come early tomorrow. I'll run some tests and give you something to help you sleep. But I knew no medication would help me. Whatever that thing was, it didn't come from my mind. It came from outside, from that image I saw in the basement. I decided to investigate. If I had found that image among the files of a dead professor, maybe there was more information about it. Maybe there was a logical explanation for what was happening to me. On Monday, I arrived at work early. My colleagues noticed I looked tired, but I didn't say anything. I went down to the basement under the pretext of continuing to catalog the donation. This time, I carefully checked every file on every floppy disk. I looked for correspondence, journals, anything that could explain where the image came from. On the third disk, I found something, a text file named notes_some. I opened it, my heart pounding. October 15th, 1992. I received the image by email. I don't know who sent it, but the sender is identified as friend. I shouldn't have opened it. Something is very wrong with that photo. I can't stop thinking about it. The nightmares continue. Every night, that thing speaks to me. It tells me to share the image, to show it to someone else. I think I'm going insane. November 2nd, 1992. I've consulted with colleagues at other universities. Apparently, there are similar reports, an image spreading through computer networks. Some call it smile.jpg or smile.dog. Everyone who sees it reports the same nightmares. November 15th, 1992. Maria Elena Vasquez, a professor at the University of Buenos Aires, committed suicide yesterday. Her husband found a note mentioning nightmares with a smiling dog. She had stored the image on a floppy disk. Her husband burned it immediately. November 30th, 1992. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to store the image on this disk along with my notes. Maybe someone in the future can find a solution. Maybe someone stronger than me can resist. Forgive me for what I'm about to do. That's where the notes ended. I checked the university's personnel records and found that the professor had died in December 1992. Suicide. The same date listed on the donation of his files. Now I understood. That image had been circulating for decades, jumping from person to person, driving each of them to despair, and I had been foolish enough to open it. But there was something I still didn't understand. If everyone who saw the image ended up either killing themselves or passing it on to someone else, how had it survived so long? How did it end up in the professor's archive? That night, in my nightmare, I asked the thing directly, "How long have you been doing this time?" It replied, and its voice sounded different, more tired, more ancient. "A long time. Since someone first took that photograph. Since they captured me in that image." "What are you?" "I am what I am. I am the smile that should never have been photographed. I am the image that seeks to spread. I am the need to be seen. Why me? Because you opened the file. Because you freed me from that disk where I had been trapped for decades. The professor managed to contain me for a while, but he couldn't destroy me completely. And now, you have released me. What do you really want?" The smile widened. "I want to exist. I want to be seen. I want to be remembered. Every person who sees my image makes me more real. Every nightmare strengthens me. Every moment of terror feeds me. And if I don't do what you ask, then I will keep visiting you every night, every time you close your eyes, until you go insane or until you die, just like all the others. All the others, Esperanza, you are not the first, and you won't be the last. Some resist longer than others. Some find creative ways to pass me on without feeling guilty. But in the end, they all give in. They all share my image. They all spread the word. I woke up that dawn with a terrible realization. I wasn't just a victim of that thing, I was part of its cycle. I was another link in its chain of propagation. And I had to choose my sanity and my life, or that of some other innocent person. I spent the rest of the night sitting in my kitchen, drinking meat and thinking. There was a third option, the one the professor had chosen, the one many others before him had taken. But I didn't want to die. Despite everything, despite the terror I wanted to live up by morning, I had made my decision. But it wasn't the decision that Thing was expecting. On Tuesday, I arrived at work with a plan. Instead of looking for someone to show the image to, I decided to do the opposite. I decided to warn others. I decided to tell my story so no one else would fall into the trap. I wrote a detailed email explaining everything that had happened. I sent it to colleagues at other universities, to internet forums, to anyone who might be interested in this kind of case. But I did not attach the image. I never attached it. That decision cost me dearly. The nightmares grew more intense. It wasn't just the image and the voice anymore. Now, in my dreams, the Thing attacked me physically. It bit me with those disturbingly human teeth. It clawed at me with talons I hadn't seen before. It chased me through endless hallways while its laughter echoed in my ears. I started waking up with marks on my body, scratches I couldn't explain, bruises that appeared during the night. My doctor was concerned, but he couldn't find any medical cause. Esperanza, these symptoms could be the result of severe stress or psychological trauma. But some of these marks, they're very peculiar. Are you sure there's nothing else you want to tell me? I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to explain everything. But I knew he wouldn't believe me. He'd think I'd gone mad. The responses to my emails began to arrive. Some people thanked me for the warning. Others said they'd had similar experiences. But what stood out the most was a message from a woman in Spain. Esperanza, I read your story with great interest. I also saw that image years ago. I also resisted the pressure to share it. But there's something you should know. There's a way to free yourself without condemning others. There's a way to break the cycle. The message included a phone number. I called it immediately. Carmen, this is Esperanza from Argentina. I received your message. Esperanza, thank you for calling. Listen, what I'm about to tell you will sound strange, but it's the only way I found to free myself from that thing. Tell me. I'm willing to try anything. You have to confront it. In your next nightmare, don't run. Don't be intimidated. Ask it what would happen if no one else ever sees the image again. Ask what would happen if the cycle were truly broken. Did that work for you? Yes, but you have to be prepared. It will try to break your will. It will show you terrible things. It will threaten you with things worse than death. But if you resist, if you stand firm, it will eventually weaken. That night, I followed Carmen's advice. When the thing appeared in my dream, I didn't run. I stood facing that terrible smile and confronted it. What would happen if no one ever sees your image again? I asked. The smile faded for the first time. That can't happen. There's always someone else. Always another victim. But what if there isn't? What if this really is the end? The thing began to distort. Its form became less defined, more blurry. No, you can't. I need to exist. I need to be seen. And what if I decide not to share your image? What if I decide I'd rather die than condemn someone else? No, the scream was deafening. You can't let me die. You can't let me disappear. For the first time, I heard fear in its voice. Real fear. I said, and felt a strange calm. I can choose to end this. The nightmare shattered. I woke up, but this time not screaming. This time, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in weeks. The days that followed were different. The nightmares continued, but that thing no longer had the same power over me. Every night, when it appeared, I reminded it of my choice. I reminded it that I would rather die than make someone else a victim. And little by little, it weakened. Its image became blurrier, its voice more distant, until finally, after 2 weeks, the nightmares stopped completely. I received another email from Carmen. Esperanza, I hope you manage to free yourself. I want you to know you're not alone. There are others like us, others who chose to break the cycle, others who decided that some things should never be shared. Now, a month later, I can sleep peacefully. I know that thing will probably look for another victim, someone weaker than me. But I also know that each person who chooses to resist, each person who chooses not to share the image, weakens it a little more. I write this not to scare anyone, but to give hope. So you know that it's possible to resist. So you know that fear can be defeated with courage, and that sometimes the only way to win is by refusing to play. If you ever come across an image you shouldn't have seen, something that haunts your dreams, remember my story. Remember that you have a choice. Remember that you can choose to break the cycle. And if that thing appears in your nightmares, tell it what I told it. I'd rather die than make someone else a victim. Because in the end, that was the phrase that freed me. That was the phrase that broke its hold on me. Some things do not deserve to exist. Some things must come to an end. And sometimes we have the power to end them.